Hello, everybody. Happy holidays to all. And we got a special episode here as we are going to look back on the year in music in 2024. I'm going to give you our top selections for the top albums of the year. We're also going to look at some albums that we thought would be better than what they turned out to be. Call them our disappointments of the year. But either way, we're going to break it all down for you and go over what we feel were like the worst albums of the year as well as the best. So, first up, we're going to start off with our most disappointing albums. And to me, there was no album as disappointing as the one that came out on February the 23rd. All the hype, all the years of working on it, supposedly. And that is none other than the debut solo album from former Motley Crue guitarist Mick Mars. Album was called The Other Side of Mars, featured Jacob Bunton on lead vocals. Man, this album, he's trying to do what Nicky did. He's trying to imitate Nicky, trying to, you know, all the different side projects Nicky Six has had over the years. I figured Mick was going to keep it more traditional rock, but instead he decided to kind of gear it more towards like a grungier, and it does not do good, Mick. It was a wrong move. It's definitely to me a weak album, the most disappointing album of the year. When I had heard, I thought it was going to be so much better. I was hoping for a really good, solid release. But sadly, the other side of Mars just does not live up to all the hype, and it's definitely just very lackluster. Nothing stands out other than the fact that he's just trying to become almost like a 6 a.m. kind of wannabe type guy, trying to go in that modern vein, something that that doesn't suit you, Mick. You are more of a classic rock artist than anything. And that's the kind of way you should have focused your attention on, I feel. You would have had a lot more success. So that's the most disappointing album of the year. Another disappointing album of the year, which is going to be my number two most disappointing, comes from the former lead singer of No Doubt, Gwen Stefani. Yeah, I was surprised when I heard she had an album out. I didn't even know it was already been out like 2 weeks. And usually, when Gwen's gonna be releasing an album because they're really pushing it everywhere you turn. But it is out on came out at Interscope Records on November the 15th. It did peak at number 95, but obviously that's way high for her. Her albums are usually top 10. So right off the bat, the public tells you, yeah, your album's not nothing great when it only punches in at number 95. And listening to the album, man, how the mighty have fallen in my estimation. Just not a great album at all. I mean, the only song I feel is even listenable is somebody else's. Other than that, this album, another pile of rubbish. And she's got to go back to your drawing board or go back to No Doubt or something because this album definitely the weakest and the worst one of her whole career in my estimation. And we'll leave it at that. Number three most disappointed. Crowded House, Gravity Stairs. Man, I thought I was getting a really good album when I bought this. I never heard anything off of it because, obviously they don't play nothing here in the US. The album didn't even chart in the US. It did reach number 8 in the UK. Came out on May 31st through the BMG label, the eighth studio album for Crowded House, and it was produced by the Crowded House and Stephen Schramm. But listening to the album, it's kind of all over the board. There's a lot of different variety on it. I guess that's a good thing sometimes, but to me, nothing really stood out. There was a song on there that kind of reminded me of a Simon and Garfunkel type song, which that's not really Crowded House either. I just couldn't get into it. So there you have it. Another disappointed album for sure from my side of things. And when you look and see it, some of the albums that came out that made my list, may leave you scratching your head on some of these other bands here. And so my number four disappointed album of the year peaked at number 15 in Japan because these guys are huge over there still. They're big. And the Frontiers release that came out on July 12th, the album is called 10 Mr. Big, the final studio release that Mr. Big has promised, and definitely the weakest album I've ever heard from them, in my opinion. Nothing's catchy on it. Um, I don't know. It just doesn't suit them. I try to get into it. Maybe I warmed up to it a little bit more after 5 listens compared to the first listen or two. But if you got to keep listening onto something that much and still not really get anything out of it, it's not a good album. Let's face facts. And I love Mr. Big. Don't get me wrong. I got a lot, pretty much the whole catalog, and I could find great songs on a lot of their albums. But this one, I couldn't find anything worth even talking about on it. So definitely a disappointment in my estimation. And that's Mr. Big 10. And then we'll end it with our number five most disappointed. And I thought this album was going to be a return to glory for this guy, but he seemed to be more concerned about the U.S. elections, which he's from Canada. He's not even from U.S. So what's he worried about? Yeah, maybe he's living here now, but I think he was one of the ones that was threatening to leave if a certain person got elected. So why isn't he gone? But Sebastian Bach, you idiot. Child Within the Man. First off, the title sucks. Dumb title. Um, you're liked in Japan, Bach. I'll give you that. Number 41 in Japan. At least it did something somewhere. I do like Hold On to the Dream. Good song. But man, you got to stop mixing politics with music, buddy. It's bad enough that Skid Row and you guys can't come to some kind of a mutual agreement to get together and at least attempt some type of a reunion because people have been dying for it for like 20 years now. And you're only getting older. You guys aren't getting younger. And you, as much as you like to blame Snake Sabo and Rachel and everybody else on the other side, you're just as much to blame. Yeah, you are a child within the man. And that's probably half the problem. Wake up, smell the coffee. I'm off my rant. I'm off my soapbox. But a disappointed album from you, Mr. Bach. Very disappointing. And I hope you get your act together for your next album and just worry about music and not worry about politics unless you're going to be becoming a politician. Okay? Thank you. All right. Now let's get back into these artists that matter. After listening to 5 of these guys, and I really thought that these were going to be good albums, but when I get the final product in my hand and listen to them, just disappointing, very disappointing from guys who I used to admire and used to do great jobs at putting albums out. But man, oh man, you guys blew it this time. I'm sorry. All right, so my number 16. So we got 16 albums I ranked that I consider decent albums. So the number 16 is none other than Mike Tramp, Songs of White Lion, Volume 2. Came out on the Frontiers label August 23rd. It's the second batch of White Lion songs that were reimagined, same lineup as the last album. And I it's okay, but I think Mike should have saved some of the songs from the first album for this album to kind of even them out because it's like all the good songs are on the one album and the other ones, the least, you know, the the ones that are weaker are all on this album, and that's probably what makes this album weaker. It's the songs. But it's good to see Mike out there still trying to, record them and try to sing them in his, the voice that he has now instead of the way his voice was way back when he wrote these songs. So we'll give him props for that. So that was number 16. Okay. So that's going to take us down to number 15. And yeah, one of the this album here is probably one of the best albums that this guy has recorded in quite some time. A return to form, if you will have you. Came out on February 20 the 3rd. MNRK Records. It peaked at number 72, and that's none other than Ace Frehley's 10,000 Volts. And yeah, some great songs on this album. 10,000 Volts, Cherry Medicine, some really good stuff for once. Ace has kind of returned because he told you so, right? Yeah. I got Steve Brown from Trickster out there to produce the album, and they did a good job working together. I hope to see them work together more in the future. That'd be great. Definitely, a satisfying album. I'll give it a thumbs up at number 15. And number 14 kind of came out of nowhere. This guy made an album in 2021, and all of a sudden he came out with another album just in November 22nd from Frontiers Records, and that's none other than Storace. And the album's called Crossfire. And of course, the album features none other than Crocus singer Mark Storace. And yeah, a couple really good songs. Screaming Demon starts the album off in fine style, and the album ends with Only Love Can Hurt Like This. Another really great song. Definitely one that stands out from the album right at the very end of the album there. I was kind of a different take. The rest of the album's pretty hard hitting, hard rocking, like in the vein of Crocus. But Only Love Can Hurt Like This is more like a ballad, and it's definitely worth a listen to. I definitely highly recommend it. And the rest of the album isn't bad. I got to give Storace credit. He still has his voice, and I thought he put out a really solid release here. And yeah, number 14, we got him at here. And that's going to take us to surprisingly number 13, who I thought was going to be a little bit lower, but there's just 12 other albums better than his in my estimation. And this album actually came out March 1st on the BMG label. It was 19 years since his previous album, which was Tyranny of Soul. So, of course, we are talking about none other than Bruce Dickinson from Iron Maiden and his 2024 release, Mandrake Project. And that actually peaked at number 176 on the US charts. And in the UK, it went all the way up to number 3. So some really good songs on here. Eternity Has Failed stood out for me. Face in the Mirror, another just classic gem of his. I thought Bruce did pretty good here. Definitely. Definitely one of the best albums of this year. We got it at number 13 for you, the Mandrake Project. So number 12, this guy, man, this guy never stops making great music, and I'll tell you, his concerts are usually something to be observed. Great shows. This guy just puts on a tremendous show, and that's none other than Mr. Steve Hackett and his new release, The Circus and the Night Whale, which came out on February the 16th on Inside Out Music. Peaked at number 30 in the UK. Not bad for an old guy still putting out music, and just some really good songs on here. Uh this is definitely a highlight of the year with this album. And if you want to find out more about it, pull up my interview I did with Steve Hackett. We did a nice interview on this album, and yeah, it was really a good time talking music with Mr. Hackett for sure. So search it out on our channel and check it out. But yeah, we got it number 12 for the year-end release in 2024, The Circus and the Night Whale. Number 11. The 11th best album of 2024 comes from Monkey Wrench Records. And this album actually made number 5. Came out on April 19th. And a lot of people are saying it's a return to form for this band, and that's none other than Pearl Jam, Dark Matter. Yeah, so definitely this album definitely was a return to form, I would say. I thought they did great. Um, you know, it was definitely better than the last few releases. Andrew Watt produced it, and yeah, definitely some React Respond is a great song. Wreckage and ends in Setting Sun ends the album, and what a great way to end it. Yeah, definitely one of the highlights of the year out of all the albums here. So we got it at number 11. Okay, so we pick up at number 10. So we got our top 10 now. Let's see how you guys like these albums here. We are going with the June 7th was when this album was released on EMI Island. None other than Forever by Bon Jovi. Peaked at number 5. So Big John's can still sell some albums. It peaked at number 5 to another top 10 album for him on the charts here. Um, it's a return to form. The last few Bon Jovi albums have been nothing to write home about. Not really the quality of songs that the fans were, accustomed to from this band. But Waves and Seeds are two of the big, strong highlights on this album. I think it's a return to form for Bon Jovi, kind of like a comeback album in a way, if you will, just because how much better it is than anything they've released over the last 4 or 5 years, or even more than that, probably. So yeah, Bon Jovi, definitely give it a listen. We got to hear it at our number 10 here. So that's definitely an album we recommend here. And number 9 takes us came out in January 19th. And so basically it was the first rock release of the year that I came across. It peaked at number 4, so I guess it was a good time to release an album because there was nothing else out there at the time to go against it. It's the 14th studio album from none other than Billy Joel Armstrong and the band called Green Day. Saviors, number 9. Good Night Adeline, Susie Chapstick. Some really good stuff on here. This is definitely a return to form for them because it was much better than the previous album. And they've kind of been going up and down over the past few years. Last few albums, they came out with the Uno Dos Tres. Yeah, they made a few duds in my estimation in between there, but this album kind of sees them rejuvenated here. And the tour they did last summer, where they did like a stadium tour, definitely was good. I didn't get to see it, but the album I thought was definitely a good album to come out at the time it did for these guys. And it's definitely a strong album that we got at our number 9 album of the year. And that takes us to number 8. And this band, they finally got to play some amphitheaters again, something they haven't done in a long time. And the album that came out on September 27th, I feel this is like one of their best albums they ever made. I really do. It's different, it's catchy, produced by Rolling Stones' current drummer Steve Jordan. It's the 13th studio album for these guys that came out on Blue Elon Records. And that's none other than Dave Pirner and Soul Asylum. They came out with this album slowly but surely. And man, what a great album. The only thing I'm missing, High Road, Freeloader, Freak Accident. Definitely a comeback album for these guys. And like I said, they finally got to play some amphitheaters again as they opened the show for Live and Stone Temple Pilots. So that was a really good tour package. Let's just hope they can get on another big one again and get to play some more sheds. The only downside with that whole tour was the fact that they opened and they only got like 7 songs. So it's kind of a bittersweet moment, I guess you'd say. Um, to go with your bittersweet heart, I guess. But anyhow, but then they did a regular tour afterwards. They pretty much got about a week and a half off, and then we're back out on there hitting the roads again. We got to see them a second time, and yeah, it was great seeing the full set, no doubt. Nothing like seeing 90 to 100 minutes of Solo Asylum. Wish we could see that all the time when they tour. But yeah, definitely a great album. We got it at number 8. And number 7, man, these guys, did they put on a show over the last 2 years, or did they put on a show? If you were able to see these guys, and I'm talking about John Anderson and the Band Geeks. Wow, what an amazing group these guys are. At John Anderson at his age, still be out there singing these great songs in the highest, the greatest. He still sounds awesome. He hasn't lost a thing. It's just amazing to see him out there playing these songs like it was yesterday. And these band geeks led by Richie Castellano, who also helped them produce this album. Um, it came out under the name of John Anderson and the Band Geeks, and the album is called True. And it was another Frontiers Records album. Some really great songs on here. Shine On, Make It Right, Thank God. There's a long 16-minute song on here. Just for a true Yes fan, if you love Yes, we highly recommend this album. Definitely a great album. Um, you will not be disappointed in any way, shape, or form with this album. I know some critics out there really gave Yes a hard time on their last couple of releases, although they say the most recent one has been better. Um, but this album with John Anderson and the Band Geeks is definitely, in my estimation, better than anything that Yes has recorded since Anderson's left. I mean, I can't say enough about it. John Anderson, what a legend. Um, Great vocals, great songwriting. He knows exactly how to write a song still. And Richie Castellano, man, these guys, they work together so well. And definitely check out True. Great album. You won't be disappointed for sure if you're a Yes fan. Number 6 actually is a big surprise on our charts to be this high. And this is another Frontiers release. Came out on June 7th. And it's by a group called Issa. Another World is the name of the album. And man, if you like classic, great sounding, female-led vocals that sounds like it came from the 1980s, you are in the right spot because this album takes you back to the 80s and it definitely is something you definitely do. If you like the 80s and melodic music, you definitely want to listen to this album. Give it a listen and you won't be disappointed in my estimation. I got to interview Issa. It's another interview you can find on my site here. She what a great vocals, she's done a great job making these albums year in and year out. They've made a lot of albums for Frontiers. I can't wait to see where the next album takes them. But this is definitely a highlight to me. I would definitely say, you got some really great songs. Armed and Dangerous, Only in the Dark, The Road to Victory, just some real great songs here. Give them a listen, and you will definitely, I think you'll be won over by these guys for sure. All right, so that takes us to the top 5. And man, oh man, oh man. Never would have thought in a million years that this guy would make another album at his age, yet still put out a quality album. We're talking about none other than Daryl Hall. The name of the album is called D. Came out on June 21st on the Virgin Music Group. Really short. It clocks in only at 34 minutes and 31 seconds. And it was produced by Dave Stewart of the Eurythmics, who actually co-wrote 7 of the 9 songs. So great album. Definitely caught me by surprise. I didn't expect this to be as good as it was, Daryl hasn't made an album in quite some time. So all of a sudden they just pop out with one. Um, yeah, he did well. This is definitely to me one of the strongest releases of the year by a mile, coming in at number five. Some of the great tracks we recommend would be The Whole World's Getting Better, the lead off track. We also like Can't Say No to You, which is another great song. Rather Be a Fool, Rainbow Over the Graveyard. Definitely, a short but sweet album. We definitely recommend you giving it a listen and seeing what you think of it because we love it. We love it. And that's going to take us to our number four album of the year. Another band that little while in between releases, but this one came out on February the 16th. Frontiers Records again. Man, those Frontier label, they've been really busy all year. The album is called Alive, and it's by the Canadian rock and rollers Honeymoon Suite, who pretty much features the same original lineup with the exception of the keyboard player, who is still been in there longer than the original. So Peter Nunn, who's a cousin of the keyboard player Ray Coburn. And yeah, so definitely a great return since they haven't made an album in quite some time. But yeah, Alive is definitely a great classic AOR radio songs on this album. Find What You're Looking For, the title track, Love Comes, Done Doing Me. Just some great songs here. Highly recommended. It's good to see these guys back. Got to see them a couple times this year. They put on some really great shows, and it never gets old. I mean, these guys just come in, they get up on that stage, they play all these great songs, and then they leave. It's just like they never leave. They never put on a disappointing performance. And I just simply love these guys. So we got Honeymoon Suite at number four. Okay, so that's going to take us to our top three. And number three should not be a surprise. This one's landing on a lot of people's lists for the top album of 2024. No exception on ours. None other than Invincible Shield by Judas Priest. Came out March 8th. Epic Records. Once again produced by Andy Sneap. And the last two tracks on the album, on the standard release, Sons of Thunder and Giants in the Sky, were co-produced by longtime Priest producer Tom Allom. So good to see Tom get a couple contributions on here. I mean, the songs that stand out, I mean, really, which ones don't? I mean, this album, very reminiscent of Painkiller with the powerful songs on it, the great pristine production. Panic Attack, the title cut, great. Um, Devil in Disguise is another song that's great. Crown of Horns. Just some really great stuff here. Um, you can't go wrong buying this album. Definitely one of the band's best in their career. I assume, just from the way I'm liking it. This album is definitely my estimation, I would say probably their best album, at least to me, since Turbo. That's my take on it. And I love Turbo, but I just felt Ram It Down was weak. Painkiller was a return to form, definitely really a high gloss release. At that point, though, I kind of I was already I had lost interest in Priest because of I didn't get to see that last tour, and then Rob left after that, so that kind of put a damper on it. Had they come out with another album like right after Painkiller, I probably would have re-liked my thing and got back into the band. But I was already kind of turned away from them after Ram It Down. I guess it was just a bad album and a bad timing for me. But Invincible Shield, definitely the next best album, first great album since Turbo in my estimation. And number two, another veteran band who's been around since the 60s. Their July 19th release on Air Music came out. 22nd studio album, once again produced by Bob Ezrin. And of course, we are talking about the Deep Purple release, Equals One. Wow. When I first heard this album, couldn't stop playing it. And I remember they released a couple videos before the album had come out, and man, they won me over right off the bat with Portable Door. Great, great song. Um, they really went heavy in concert on this album by playing like 5 to 6 cuts off of it. And yeah, a bit on the side. Another great song, Lazy Sod, which they did a video for, another standout. But Pictures of You, I think, is my favorite song on the album. Definitely a great song. Highly recommended to give that one a listen. And the album ends with Bleeding Obvious, another song they were doing live. Definitely a very, very good album. Number two on our list, and highly, highly recommended to catch these guys if they ever tour out near you. Or supposedly they're going to be making another album this year, coming up 2025. So stay tuned. These guys are far from done. From just listening to this release and seeing them live this past year, man, they definitely are far from done. Just good to see. It's really good to see a veteran band like them out there just still killing it night after night and still putting on the type of performances that they are. Definitely one of the best bands in the history of rock and roll by a mile. Deep Purple. And that's what we got at number two equals one. And now, number one. Well, this is probably going to surprise some people, especially after some of the albums we just mentioned here. But our number one album came out on May 17th on Fuzzy Flex Records. Yeah, probably never heard of the label, have you? But the album was called From Here to Eternity. It features the boys from Atlanta, Georgia, Collective Soul. And it's a double album. And I'll tell you, most double albums, usually nowadays you kind of get lost when there's a lot of tracks on an album. But the way they set this one up, they did it perfectly. The songs are so smooth when they flow into each other somewhat, and it's just a great listen. Some really great stuff on here. One of the best albums of this band's career. And it kicks off with Mother's Love, Bluer Than So Blue. And then it's got standouts like Not the Same, Be the One. Just a great overall album experience. Some of the best songwriting of Ed Roland's career. Still got the same band that they've had now for probably the last 10 to 12 years or so. These guys are killing it live as well, and they're just putting on great performances. And this is definitely another standout album to me out of the band. They made so many great albums. Um, Pretty much later, like I'd say from Youth. Youth started it when Youth came out, and then they started Afterwards is another great album. Uh, the self-titled release that came out. They made so many great albums, but this one is definitely better than the last few. It's just stronger, and they did a great job on it. No other words I could say other than that. But number one, we got Collective Soul, From Here to Eternity. So that's a lot of music there. This is one of the biggest years for music I think I can remember in quite some time. For me personally, I used to make these CDs where I would pick what like the best 10 to 15 songs that came out during a calendar year, and I would make these albums and put all these songs on them. And I stopped doing it about 10 years ago or so. It wasn't easy to always do, and then I just got, turned away from it because I felt like there wasn't a lot of good music coming out. once we got past 2010, there's hit or miss. But this year, this is probably the most releases I bought in a year from new albums. And let's see what 2025 brings. But we're celebrating 2024 here. I think the class of 2024 did very well. There's a lot of great music here. Albums that I feel that I'll go back in and still be playing, down the road. That's the thing. How good is an album? Well, it depends how often you go back to it. If these are something you only heard during this year once or twice, there's a good chance unless you're doing playing all the artists' albums or something like that, you're not going to be going back to it if it's not a good album. But I think many of these, especially my top 10, I feel I'll definitely be playing a lot of these still regularly going forward for sure. Even my top 11 with Pearl Jam, Hackett in there at number 12. I mean, these guys made some really good albums this year. It wasn't easy making these selections here, let me tell you. But definitely these are the albums that we recommend, and don't be afraid to list some of the ones that maybe we didn't have on this list, or maybe we weren't aware, but it happens. But give us what your top five albums of the year were or something. Be glad to hear from you. And here's to a great 2025. Wish everybody a happy and a safe new year. And don't forget to, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. We got many more things coming down the road, like I said, and it'll be good to see you guys there. So, Happy New Year, everybody.